Welcome to the Earth Your Wow podcast, brought to you by Reuserbox, providing a better way to buy cardboard boxes. We're your hosts, Jack and Ellie.
This is the podcast where we talk to industry experts and change makers to try to answer the question, how do we make our businesses better for people and the planet? Today we're joined by Steff Wright, chairman and founder of the Gusto Group, a certified B Corp company. Alongside building the Gusto Group, Steff has a passion for giving back and has reinvested back into numerous startup companies and social enterprises. Welcome to the podcast, Steff. Thanks for joining us.
It's a pleasure. Great to be here.
Welcome. So I guess we wanted to learn about your story and how you got to where you're at and why.
Why? How? Well, I've now reached the great old age of 61, so I've been around for quite a few years, and I started in business really almost before I left school. Started to create little businesses and did all sorts of entrepreneurial things. I've never had a proper job, so my career in business or development of my businesses, I almost can trace all the way back to not being a very good student at school, being distracted by being interested in other things apart from the academic work that the teachers were trying to get me to do. And that really evolved into, starting off in business. So my first proper business was working as a mobile DJ. I used to run mobile discos, and I've actually done barn dances up here in Drydoddington.
Oh, wow.
in the big barn on the corner there. I can't remember who owned it at the time, for the young farmers. And so started off the disco, which I called Dr. Gusto. So that was where the Gusto name first came from. And as I did my discos, I then did go back to college. I did a building diploma at Basford Hall College, and that took me down the route of construction. It was something I was interested in, and out of that, I suppose that the various businesses have grown over many, many years.
Yeah, cool. It's interesting. You were saying that when you were at school, you sort of became entrepreneurial. Why was that?
Well, I think if I go back in time to my childhood, I grew up in a really small village. I grew up in a little village called East Markham. My father was a vicar. He was a lot older than me. That's a pretty obvious statement. But he was 50 when I was born, so there was almost like a generational gap. And I suppose his generation was a generation that had lived through the World War, and community was a big part of what he did. He wasn't a traditional vicar, and by any stretch of the imagination, they used to get, I think, got probably looked upon him as a strange. He was a strange vicar in lots of ways. They used to put on plays in the village hall and in the church, and used to do all sorts of stuff that wasn't very conventional at all. He set up a village magazine called the East Markham Gazette, which was part of the community there, and so did lots of community-focused stuff. And I think growing up as within that real community has been a big influence on my enthusiasm for trying to create community. And when you're a developer and you're building houses, you can just think that these are houses, we sell those and we move away from them, or you can sort of look at it as we're growing a community and building a community, and that's very much how I sort of approach development. So I think growing up in a small community was one of it. My mother was an artist and still is an artist. Very creative, so I think that creativity was part of what I grew up with, and I think I was just given total freedom, in lots of ways. I'm sure other families and parents would say that as a family we were just allowed to do exactly what we liked, which was We didn't have boundaries really. I never sort of remember growing up with any boundaries, and so it allows you the freedom to think outside the box and do what you want to do. And so therefore I got a bit frustrated with school. I actually got kicked out of the grammar school I was at Retford. So I wasn't very good academically because I was just distracted with all sorts of other things that I wanted to be interested in. We're obviously going to talk about sustainability and the need to sort of transition to a different type of future. And I think one of the constraints that we have is the fact that we all are very compliant and sort of stuck in a way of doing things. We feel that this is the way we should do things. That's the right way to do it. And therefore we're not able to think outside that particular box.
What's that quote, Eleanor? You know, that famous quote. It's on our website.
The famous one.
The famous one. What is it? The most. What is it? The most dangerous phrase in the human language.
That's the way we've always done it.
Yeah, that one.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
and I think that's the thing, and I think it's very frustrating for people that work in our different businesses that I do jump from one thing to another, so it does have its frustrations, but it's very easy to stay stuck on a rail track that you daren't move away from because you think that's the way that you've always done it. It's worked, and so why would you change it? When actually we need a paradigm shift in so many different aspects of business and life.
Do you want to tell us about Gusto Homes? Because I feel like there's this huge need for a rethink of housing in this country. We've heard that our homes are really poorly insulated, and many new homes are just not, compared to a lot of like the global northern countries, our housing is pretty terrible, isn't it? I'm not talking about Gusto Homes.
Not your house.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
right.
Tell us what you're doing and how you're tackling that.
Well, so started off as a builder, and you get good at being a builder and knowing how to put bricks on top of each other, and you align with what is the building regulation. So that's the minimum standard that everybody has to build to. And once you've got your head around that, then there was a point in the early 90s, and it was off the back of the Rio summit that took place. So that was the first of the COP events that took place in 1992. And that was the first time that conversations really started to take place around global warming. And it was the first time I'd really heard the expression sustainability and started to get my head around what sustainability meant. And so by the mid-90s, I'd got a real interest in sustainability. And then I managed to secure a site in Collingham that we could get planning on for about 22 houses. And it's a bit of a long story, so I won't go into the massive detail on it, but there was what's called an uplift covenant on the site. So when the site was going to transition from being a piece of farmland, it was actually an old playing field for the school, but the school had closed down many, many years ago. And so this piece of land had then been sold back to the farmer, and I was buying it from the farmer, but the council wanted 50% of any potential uplift in value. Now the farmer was a bit frustrated by this because he'd owned the land a generation before, and it had been bought from him under a compulsory purchase order by the council, and then they were wanting this uplift. So it made me think a little bit creatively, and I went to the council and said, look, you are talking about sustainability, you're talking about Local Agenda 21, which was a thing that was talked about then, and you want developers to innovate. I want to innovate. I've got a massive enthusiasm to do that, but I know that the cost of innovation is going to be massive. If I'm going to do something different on this site, then it's going to cost me a lot more to do it. How about you get rid of this uplift covenant and then that'll help to fund the costs of innovation on the site. And I've now told you the long story, having said I wasn't going to do. Yes, so in the end, that got me going down that route. Unfortunately, the outcome was that the council didn't support it financially at all, and they still wanted their money. But by the time that I'd gone so far down the route and done a heck of a lot of research, I'd been looking at best practice in Europe, looking at lots of new technologies, I made the decision I'm going to do this anyway, and I've got to try to then make it work commercially because I've got no funding for it at all. Now, at the time, I remember being really frustrated with the council, frustrated that people were talking about the need for sustainability and the need for change, but actually they weren't going to support me to innovate at all. But I felt that there was a business opportunity around it, and it made me look at everything in a very, very commercial way. And the first customer I had to buy a house on that site, who bought off plan, was a guy called Walter, an old guy. And I came up with this expression, will Walter buy it? So every time we looked at a certain type of enhancement to the properties, rainwater harvesting, we put rainwater harvesting in all the houses, solar water heating on the roofs. We had 3 times the amount of insulation. We used cellulose fibre, recycled newspaper as our form of insulation. We put raised beds in the gardens for people to grow their own vegetables. So we looked at lots of different technologies and lifestyle changes within the development. But I had to try to package those up in a way that I was going to try to get more value from the customer. And so I'd got this customer called Walter, and it was, will Walter buy it? So I used to sit down with Walter and say, Walter, we're thinking about doing this to your house, because he literally was going to buy the first house on the site. And he was a brilliant guy. And interestingly, Walter unfortunately passed away a few years after moving in. But his son then came and lived in the house and has now bought another one of our houses, and his granddaughter also lives in one of our houses on another development in Collingham. So that family have stayed on our developments ever since those early conversations with Walter. So that's what took me down that route. The development was called Millennium Green. We built our office on the site where the houses were built. And frustratingly, in some ways, once I'd developed the site and done it, and we were winning awards for it, and the BBC came and did a documentary about it, and it was used on Open University programs. I still get people saying that they've studied what we did on that site 25 years ago. They studied it on their Open University degree courses. So it created a lot of attention. I suppose there was a frustration that we didn't get any support for it, but in some ways it made us look at it as a business. And I think there's a lot of projects that happen that get funded that are never viable because they're just funded, and they don't end up being a business. It's just a way to spend government money to try to sort of prove some concept, but doesn't really prove the business case for it.
So how are your houses like? I know you've touched on a few things there. What makes those houses better for the planet?
Well, those early houses, we did put gas central heating systems in them because we were too nervous to take them out. Now we build houses that are fully electrically heated, have got much greater levels of insulation in the houses than standard building regs houses, so they need a very minimal amount of heat to heat the houses. So therefore you can what you're trying to do really is get a balance between the amount of energy that you can generate through your solar PV on the roof of the houses and the heat the energy that the house needs to heat its hot water and heat the space inside the house. So that's really the aim, is to get those two things in balance. And then any energy that you're buying in green energy, and therefore you've got effectively a zero carbon property.
Amazing. So are they much cheaper to run? Are people's bills low? Because that's what everyone's concerned about, isn't it? It's energy prices going through the roof.
Yeah, it's a difficult one because gas is still cheaper than electricity. So the cost of electricity,
it's going down though, isn't it? Is that right? Green energy is. If we look at maybe I'm incorrect here, but I thought that green energy was kind of getting towards the same price as gas.
When you say green energy,
so like say from wind turbines.
Yeah, in terms of the production of renewables, the production cost for renewables is certainly coming down massively. Oh, okay. The market price for energy is the market price, and it's fixed to gas as well. So there's some issues in the whole market in terms of the cost of electricity. If you can use electricity really efficiently, and things like heat pumps are able to extract 3 times the output, energy output, compared to the energy input. So for every kilowatt of electricity it takes to run a heat pump, you can get up to 3 kilowatts of energy out of a heat pump, and that's the beauty of the technology that a heat pump does, because it's effectively extracting energy out of the air. So it brings in warm air, it extracts that energy out, and it throws out cold air. So the cost of running the heat pump might be a kilowatt, but the amount of energy that it extracts from the air is 3 kilowatts. So it becomes very efficient, but unfortunately the electricity cost is probably 3 times the cost of gas. So you don't necessarily get a cash saving, but what you're doing is you're actually using zero carbon energy. So and if you're generating that electricity yourself on the roof of your house, then obviously you are getting free electricity once you've paid for your solar panels. I think that is what motivates a lot of people. It's having that sort of autonomy of being self-sufficient. People like it.
What's the most important thing if you're building a house to reduce the impact of it? Is it about how that house is heated and the energy usage over its lifespan, or?
If you go right back to basics on new houses, it's probably the materials you build the house with. And I've just invested in a company called Hemspan, who are developing a range of building materials made from hemp.
Okay.
So if you can actually build houses using natural materials that lock up carbon rather than are carbon intense, then that's almost the starting point. And at the moment, there's very few building materials that do that. So that needs to be a shift, away from concrete, away from bricks and blocks, to natural materials that are actually going to sequester carbon rather than be carbon intense. So once you build your carbon neutral property, then you want to build it in a way that it's going to use very, very little energy to make the property run, and then ideally generate an equivalent amount of electricity from your solar. I mean, that's sort of the ideal house. Once the grid is decarbonised, then you probably don't need to put solar panels on the roof, because it's probably as efficient just to buy in green electricity. But at the moment, the majority of the electricity you're buying, it isn't really green. And then it's the lifestyle you live, because it's the food you eat, it's everything else that you do as an individual. But what you've got to do is you've got to make that lifestyle a really appealing lifestyle for people. Because the trouble is, everybody talks about, we've got to shift over to this new lifestyle and we're all going to have to give everything up. Well, actually,
design a better lifestyle.
And get on and let's live it, and let's be healthier, let's be fitter.
I think behaviour change is the hardest thing, isn't it? Because we get so used to kind of being in our routines, and we're so used to living this convenience lifestyle that, yeah, I guess that's
the role of business in it, because like a really great business is going to just have a better product, and then people will just buy it because it's better,
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
So an example of that, again, I'm investing in a number of companies now. I've invested and I'm quite involved with a company called Bosch. They're plant-based food people. They've sold certainly well over 1 million cookbooks. I think they've sold more plant-based food cookbooks than anybody else in the world. They've got a massive social media audience, and we're now rolling out food products with Bosch. So Bosch have now just literally this week, or was it last week, we're now rolled out in all Costas, so over 2,500 Costas across the UK.
Wow.
All Costas plant-based food is now Bosch branded, which is a really good bit of business. It gets plant-based food out there to a big audience, gets the Bosch brand out there to a big audience. And interestingly, the key driver for Costa in terms of wanting to do that deal, they want to sell more plant-based food because as a company, they want to transition towards a lower carbon model. And they've had to look at the food they sell, the product they sell, and if they can sell product that has a lower carbon footprint, then that helps them as a business to transition to where they want to get to. Costa's owned by Coca-Cola, and Coca-Cola have set an ambition to get to net zero, and so they need partners that are going to help them to do that. So again, as you just said, it's about therefore getting good products that people want to buy.
Yeah.
That appeal to people, that they can recognise the brand on, they've got an enthusiasm for, and then that enables those businesses to grow. But it also allows people to make those changes in their lifestyle. Because if there aren't the options to do things differently, then it's very difficult for people to change their lifestyles. They'll only change them if there's something better to move towards.
Yeah, I think vegetarian and vegan food has come on a long way recently. I still think we've got a long way to go. But it's been, if you go back even 10 years, it was very just processed stuff. And I don't think that's particularly healthy personally. But it's getting a lot better, isn't it? And I think people are starting to kind of think that, this is just as nice as meat. And you'll get lots of people. I mean, my partner previously used to eat meat with every meal, and we eat a lot of our meals are plant-based now, and he doesn't really miss the meat at all. But it's just that kind of like behavior change, and that just finding meals that are both healthier and nice.
It is. And it's taking people on a sustainability journey, isn't it? I think that if people feel criticised because of what they're doing, they're not going to move away from it. If
Definitely.
People feel that they are going on a journey and actually they being a little bit more open-minded to try new things, if those new things are good, then they'll continue down that path. If those new things aren't good, then they're not going to go down that path. So there is a big responsibility on business, but a massive opportunity for business. And we've now got our own plant-based food business called Eat More Good Stuff. We've opened a cafe, deli, in our co-working space in Collingham, called The Allotment, and so as a company now we're growing our own plant-based food company. We've actually just taken over the pub in Collingham, the Royal Oak pub, which is a community pub, which has faltered a little bit under its community ownership. And so our Eat More Good Stuff business is from the middle of this month is going to be taking the pub over. But we're going to not have it as a vegan pub. It's going to be sell meat. It's going to have a flexitarian menu. We're going to focus on trying to source food locally, so work with the local butchers and make sure that we've got good, sustainably sourced food as much as we can. Because it's not about being black and white and saying, oh, we're now only a vegan business. I've been plant-based for about 6 years. But again, my transition to being plant-based took quite a few years to do, really. It didn't happen overnight. Fortunately, all my family decided to go down that route, so we've all done it together and just moved in a direction. And I think if you're too black and white about things, then you never make the change. Whereas if you just start to gradually change, then you start to see the benefits.
Yeah, something like that is so difficult. I think veganism for me sounds like very hard. But even if people start with like meatless Mondays or something, that seems achievable, doesn't it? If you don't eat meat like one day a week, and yet it's been proven that can make a huge impact on your carbon footprint, or just cutting down on red meat, for instance. So yeah, it's just taking those small steps, isn't it?
It is. I mean, in reality, we do need to transition away from commercially farmed meat, because to move to a truly low carbon economy, then we can't afford the inefficiencies of the meat industry. The meat industry is such a polluting industry and such a an inefficient industry in terms of, you're growing crops to feed animals to then eat those animals. It's not a very efficient way of producing protein. So from a business point of view, it's almost the biggest business opportunity that there ever was in terms of this transition away from industrialized meat towards a different type of protein production. And hence the fact that, as an investor, I'm looking at those opportunities. And, Bosch, we're doing some amazing, exciting stuff with Bosch. We're going to do some really interesting stuff around football. Next month, there's a thing called Green Football Weekend, and Bosch are sponsors of that. And so we're getting very much involved in that. We want to try to really promote plant-based food to new audiences. And the deal with Costa's obviously the start of that bigger opportunity.
I suppose everybody has to eat.
Everybody has to eat, and it's almost like the biggest change that you can personally make.
Yeah.
It's difficult to make those other changes because to super insulate your house and to change your car and to do those things are expensive shifts. Whereas to actually change your diet is not difficult, and the options are out there. You have to understand it a bit and go up the learning curve and make sure that you've got the right balance of nutrition, but you'll actually feel better and healthier for it.
Food for thought.
Food for thought.
Nice fun.
Yeah.
What do you think about these kind of startups looking at these kind of lab-grown meats?
I
don't know anything about it, so
I think that certainly is going to be a big part of the solution. I think whole grain plant-based food is probably the healthiest options, but lab-grown protein is definitely going to be a part of the solution as well. I think people want recognisable food, so you have to look at why people like eating meat, and if you can give them that same sensation with a more affordable, because again it needs to be affordable to people, and healthy option that has a lower impact on the environment, then that's when people will transition away from meat. So I think development of lab grown protein is part of the solution. I've never tried it.
No.
Don't like the idea of it.
Hi.
I don't know. I just think things should be more natural. I think it just sounds very processed.
But most of the things we eat are processed, aren't they?
Yeah.
And that's the reality. It's amazing how well the sort of meat and dairy industry have done in terms of marketing themselves as being natural. You know, what's natural about drinking milk from a cow that's designed actually for a calf? It's not designed for us. It's designed for a calf, and it's designed
to take it from a little baby cow to a giant 3-ton.
Absolutely. So it's got all sorts of stuff in it that really isn't right for us. And most people, you know, a very high proportion of people are lactose intolerant, and so you know, I used to eat loads of cheese. And I used to feel rough the next day. Now, that was partly because usually when I ate a lot of cheese, I was drinking a lot of wine at the same time. So I always put it down to the wine. But it was interesting when I moved away from cheese and made that sort of final step. And cheese was almost one of the last things that I gave up.
Isn't it? That's the hard thing, yeah.
That I felt so much better. I used to get really bad skin, and I don't get that anymore. I've always had an inhaler, and I haven't really used an inhaler for a couple of years. You know, so gradually, you know, those allergies have disappeared, and it's related to what you eat, what you put into your body is, you know, got a massive impact on, you know, the way that you feel and the way that your body performs. So. Lactose intolerance is something that I think a lot of people aren't aware that they've got. And so there are benefits.
Absolutely.
So listening to your TEDx talk and a lot of stuff that you said this morning, we should talk a lot about community, and I guess that is a big part of the solution. But I wondered, if you're doing these like housing projects, how do you try and incorporate community into that?
You've got to design your developments around the community. So if you build a load of houses, just picking a developer out, Barratt boxes, you know, and everybody's got their own driveway, their own garage, their own parking space. Then you can very easily have a development where there's no opportunity for anybody to interact with anybody else on that development.
And that's modern living, isn't it? We've stopped interacting. We just sit on our phones and order takeaway.
Yeah.
I don't talk to my neighbours. Yeah.
No, you don't know.
It's starting to get creepy, isn't it?
Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, you're right. A lot of people don't know their neighbours. And it was so I've lived in villages, and I lived in a little village not far up the road from here called Allington for quite a few years. And then just before I moved over to the development I now live on, which is one of our developments at Lincoln, next to the showground, I rented a place in Grantham for 6 months because my son was just finishing off in school there. And we moved on to a modernish type of development in Grantham. And in the 6 months we were there, apart from me going around and knocking on the door of my immediate neighbour there and getting to know him, I never bumped into anybody else that lived on the site because there was no place or opportunity really to do that. Everybody just drove into their driveways and went into their houses.
Went into their boxes.
Yeah. And so when I designed the Woodlands Edge development where we live at Lincoln, which has got 30 houses on it, we really thought about that. And so we've got a footpath that runs right around the site for people to walk their dogs around, and then therefore people bump into each other as they're walking around there. We decided not to have individual bins, that will have a bin store where people take all their rubbish to. So a communal bin store. And it's amazing how often you bump into people just walking their rubbish down to the bins. We put allotments in there so that everybody has an allotment or has the opportunity to have an allotment. And again, that's a real centre for people to meet together. We've set up a residents-owned management company, so all the open space there is owned by the residents. So they've got a residents committee that basically manages the open space. So therefore, you've got another reason for everybody to want to have a shared interest in the site. There's a WhatsApp group for everybody, so if anybody's getting rid of something or wanted to inform people about something, they just use a WhatsApp group. So all of a sudden you create a community, and without those key parts being designed and thought about right at the outset, you don't. That community doesn't just happen, and actually those communities used to happen in villages, because people used to meet up at the village hall. I suppose in some ways the church was a centre of a village community. So there was different things that brought people together. There'd be the village fetes and things like that happened within a village. And what we've also done on our Woodlands Edge development is we've got a communal store. So inside the communal store, there's lawnmowers, rotavator, there's a compressor.
Also, share stuff.
It's stuff that everybody shares. Yeah. Nice. So you all share the kit. So not everybody needs to have their own lawnmower. Not everybody needs to have their own rotavator. Why do we all need stuff?
Yeah, because you only use it for like an hour a month or something.
Absolutely.
And like things like that, that's not only better for the planet because you're using less resources, but it's the social benefits as well, isn't it? It's all tied together.
I was we were talking before you got here about I had flu in November, and I watched a documentary about Singapore and like how they've designed
blue zones.
Yeah, they designed it over the last 20, 30 years, and they've done all these cool things like the government. They build these developments. It's like high rises, and on the bottom floor you've got like shops, and on the next layer you've got like social things, like restaurants, karaoke, bowling alleys, and then you have accommodation above it. And then they subsidise. They want people to live. They want grandparents to live near their children, so they can help them with childcare. And then they make sure that the old people live at the very top,
right.
And they only have stairs, so they have to walk up and down. So they have to do more exercise, and they sort of create these places, a bit like you're saying, where people bump into each other. So they can have shared experiences.
I don't know if it was similar, but I watched the one on. It was looking at people that lived to over 100.
It was about blue zone,
and it was all the blue zones across the world where all these people are living to over 100, and it focused on communities and how people are healthier in these areas. And it sounds to me like that's what you're making.
You're making a blue zone in Collingwood.
Yeah, blue zone.
You should tell Netflix.
You should make a Lincolnshire blue zone.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'll look out for that.
You need to do a study on whether people start living longer.
What they determined was these areas where you have all the people that live over to 100, they found it was mainly around, they all had these rituals around social things, and they spent more time together, they ate together.
And they ate more plant-based diets.
Yeah.
And they walked more,
and they didn't really go to the gym and stuff like that, but exercise was just part of their routine. They had a kind of purpose, so it might have been they had a part-time job, or they had something where they got up every day. Is it Ikigai?
Well,
one of the countries calls it that. I've forgotten.
Okay. I don't know.
And I think in Costa Rica they call it something else, which I've forgotten now. But it's having that purpose, and that's something to kind of live for, I guess.
It is, yeah. It is. And actually, when you think about it, what is the one thing that really everybody wants? And it is
community.
It's a long, healthy life.
Yeah.
What will people pay for? What will people invest in? What should we be doing as businesses? We should be offering products and services that are going to help enhance people's lives and give them longer, healthier existences. And if you can do that through the type of development you build, then that's a big part of it. So, because we were thinking, what are we trying to sell to people here? Are we trying to sell them a house that has a lower impact on the environment? Some people might see that as something that they're prepared to pay a bit more for. How many people would be prepared to pay to live in a development that really was proven to give them a longer, healthier, more enjoyable life? Then I think that if it's sold in the right way, the majority of people would want to buy into that. So we took what we did at the Lincoln development at Woodlands Edge, which I've now lived in for 6-7 years, to the same concept to our bigger development at Collingham. We've done 200 houses on that development at Collingham. 90 of which are retirement properties. And we've opened our Gusto House on that development, so our business is based there now. Within Gusto House, we've got a co-working space, so people can come that live on the development, but also in the village and the surrounding villages, come and work from a co-working space. And we're running events in the co-working space. We've got a Women in Business event that we've started. We've got an AI club that we've started. So really getting groups of people to come together and use that space. We've put a gym in there, so that gym opens next week. And so again, another reason for people to come together. We've got the plant-based cafe there. We've actually got a thing called Men in Sheds there. We've actually changed the name from, it used to be Men in Sheds, but it's now the Collingham Shed. And that's something that we worked with some guys on 7 or 8 years ago, and we gave them an old shed in our Gusto construction yard. And it was an idea that came through trying to connect older men to sort of health services, really, the people that were a little bit disconnected from it. So that was the idea that was developed, and then Collingham was one of the first Men in Sheds in the UK, and it's been a real success. So we've actually built them a brand new purpose-built shed next door to the co-working space, and they've got 40 odd members now, men and women of all ages that go there. They've got machinery in there for woodwork, metalwork. It's a repair shop. It's it's a real hub of the community. We've got allotments there as well. So the whole thing brings people together, and we think we've got a really great model with what we've done at Collingham, and that's how really development should be being designed and thought about all over the UK.
Do you think why is this not happening, or do you think this could be developed across the UK? Do you think the other
it doesn't happen because of the model that we've got for delivering our new houses. So if you want to design the worst model for delivering houses anywhere in the world, we've got that in the UK. And the model it's a very simple model. It's try to work out a way where developers can maximise the value of land. And by maximising the value of land, what you do is you minimise the cost of building. So the house building industry has been very good at lobbying government to ensure that building regulations stay as low as possible. So therefore, the cost, they can cram as many houses in as possible, not bothered about putting other resources and services into that site because it's all a bit too complicated. It's far easier just to build lots of boxes. Keep the standards down so that you can build them cheaply, and therefore you can maximise the profitability. Now, that's great if you're a shareholder of a PLC house builder, but it's not so great if you're UK PLC that should be sitting there thinking, how can we build great communities? How can we build a housing stock that's going to use less energy? How can we give people long, healthy lives?
Yeah.
If you want to come at it from that angle, then you wouldn't use the delivery model that you've got at the moment. You'd come up with another delivery model, and to a certain extent, that there is some movement in change in that councils are now setting up their own development companies, and we're looking to work with those councils to deliver better housing. North Kesteven District Council have got their arm's length company that they've set up to deliver housing, and they want to deliver housing to Passive House standard, which is fantastic. So they've seen that there needs to be a different model, and they'll want to work with companies that are good at delivering houses to that standard. And so we're looking to do much more partnership work with local authorities and pension funds as well, that are taking a bit more of a longer term view on the need for delivering the right types of housing for people.
Yeah, I think it's really powerful when it's designed better. I was reading a book, and they were talking. There was this like bank in America, and they had a real issue with people being off sick at work, and they were like they brought in loads of people to try and work out how can we stop people being off sick. And I don't know if you can guess the one thing that made a really big impact. Want to guess?
Well, go on.
No, I was amazed by this. So all they did was they went to they made sure everybody had a break at the same time, and they went to the canteen and they got rid of all the tables, and they just put like a few big tables. So everybody had a break at the same time, and everybody sat around one big table, or groups of people in this big corporation. And the amounts of people that are off work ill and had stress and depression just dried up overnight.
Wow.
Just because of the power of getting people together a bit more.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
When they're supposed to be working as well,
That shows like loneliness is like an epidemic, isn't it? It's like a health crisis, isn't it?
Yeah.
Mental health is just such an important
I guess the
issue.
pandemic didn't help that, did it at all?
No.
It didn't, but it also did bring communities together. So there was elements in the pandemic that we need to try to learn from and revisit. There was obviously a lot of people that were very lonely and disconnected through the pandemic, but there were some good examples of communities coming together. And I think we need to sort of go back to some of those.
Do you think on a small, maybe like village communities, will maybe fared better, but people in cities? I don't know, I'm just guessing here.
I think you're probably right. Yeah. If those resources weren't there for people to meet up, and if people didn't try to connect with their neighbours, then people could have been very disconnected and lonely through the pandemic, without a doubt. We do need to change. We need a massive change, and community has to be where it starts in my head, because also community has the ability to. They've got the knowledge on the solutions that are going to work well within their community. I think what the pandemic proved also is that you cannot have central government coming up with the answers and just sending those answers out to everybody and telling them to do stuff, because they just get it so wrong. The answers need to be driven from community up. We need bottom up politics, so that local communities can influence what happens to them rather than having things imposed upon them. And I think that will change. That is one of the biggest step changes that we need to make. I mean, there's lots of political step changes that need to happen to make things change.
Do you think it will happen?
Well, I think that the political system has failed massively. The two-party system is not working. Hasn't worked for a long period of time. We need. I think personally, we need proportional representation so that people feel that it's worth them going out and voting, because their vote will then count. At the moment, a lot of people just say, I'm not going to bother voting because my vote is not going to count. I don't want to vote for either of the two main parties, and there's no other options. So personally, I think we need proportional representation. I think we then need new people coming into politics that have got new ideas that are community driven, and then we need those ideas to be driven from the community, because a lot of our communities are going to need to be more resilient. You can see with the flooding, with lots of the consequences of climate change are going to have an impact. I live next door to RAF Scampton. We're going to have a couple of thousand people at RAF Scampton that are going to be moving in there, and it's going to change the dynamic of that area. And I don't know if you know about RAF Scampton, but that's going to be a place for asylum seekers. So they're using RAF Scampton for asylum seekers, and so there's been a lot of local issues around that. And but it looks like it's going to happen. And if it is going to happen, then the local community needs to come up with the solutions as to how we're going to adapt to this influx of people. We can stand there with placards and say we don't want it to happen, but once it does happen, let us come up with some answers rather than being told this is how you've got to deal with things by people from the Home Office that don't have any local knowledge, because we've got a lot of local knowledge.
Yeah. What do you think businesses can do to help tackle these issues, things like the climate crisis? What's one of the biggest things they can do?
I think the biggest thing any business can do is firstly be aware of the climate crisis and be aware of the science, understand the science, and then start to look at it as an opportunity. Because the moment if you start to look at it as a cost to your business all the time, then you'll resist change, and by resisting change, you'll miss opportunity. So you have to understand the science, understand. The way my head works is very visual, so I visualize how things are going to be in the future. So I've got quite a clear vision as to how wonderful the world could be if we transition to a different type of economy and a different type of focus, and that focus is around health and well-being and a fairer, less of a consumer-driven lifestyle, and so you can paint that picture in your head, and if you then think about your business and how your business could thrive in that new economy, then that helps you to reposition your business and see the opportunity, because there is still a massive need for business. Businesses don't disappear. Making a profit is not a bad thing to do. Businesses need to be successful. They need to make a profit. But what they then need to do is they need to focus on not just profit, focus on people, planet, and profit, which is at the core of B Corp, which both of our companies are now B Corps. Nice. So, for a business that hasn't even started on that journey and hasn't started to get the head around sustainability and a different type of low carbon economy, then it might feel like a massive step change. And businesses might feel, I'm being criticised because I run a fleet of diesel wagons and we use a lot of energy. So, we just want to ignore it and actually fight against it. Those businesses will go bust because they need to transition into a new type of business. I own a business which uses a heck of a lot of energy. It's a plastics business. It's called Rotatech. I bought the business in 2010. It's based just down the road from here. I think you're supply boxes to us, so we use your services. And Rotatech uses a lot of gas to manufacture products. We make sailing boats, sailing dinghies. We make a massive range of products. So we have quite a large carbon footprint in terms of our manufacturing process, although we have a lower carbon footprint than a lot of alternative manufacturing processes, like using steel and fabricated products do use a more energy intense than the type of manufacturing we do, which is rotational moulding. However, we can still massively improve on where we are. So we're now investing in new technology, robotic technology, to move away from the need to use gas to being all electric, and then we can use renewable electricity to power our machines. And we've just bought a new factory over near between Worksop and Sheffield, and we're developing this technology. So we're seeing the need to change, still seeing the desire from our customers to want products. So it's not as if that market's going to disappear, but what we've got to do is try to produce those products in a more environmentally friendly way that eventually could create a massive business opportunity for us, because if we can be the innovators in that sector, then we can roll that innovation out, certainly across the UK, across Europe, and potentially, it's a global solution that we're putting out there. So, you wherever your business is at the moment, you need to get on that journey, that sustainability journey, but do it by seeing the opportunity rather than seeing it as a threat.
I think it was really significant when you said those companies that don't will go bust, because I think so many companies just think, well, we've done this for 50 years. This is just the way we operate. We've always used gas. We'll be fine. But you can't think like that, can you? And that's not... Yeah. What would you say to those businesses? Like, do they need to wake up?
Well, they do need to wake up, because I think that will be the outcome. The government is making commitments to decarbonise the economy. One of the things it's going to have to do is it's going to have to put a cost on carbon. So if there's no environmental cost or no financial penalty for just polluting, then everybody can carry on as business as normal, because you can just carry on polluting. Now, the moment there's a cost attached to that, then you've got to look at other solutions. And there will be costs attached to carbon that are going to have to come in a far greater way than they are at the moment. Alongside that, there needs to be incentives for people to transition to new technologies. So there is a big role that the government needs to play. There's a big role that customers need to play, because customers ideally need to prefer to buy products and services that have a lower carbon footprint. And I think that's one of the things that B Corp is trying to do. B Corp's trying to make it very easy for people to identify a company and say, actually, that's the company I want to deal with, because I know that they've got a lower carbon footprint. People are moving away from banks like, say, Barclays Bank, because Barclays Bank is a bank that is very much embedded in the fossil fuel industry, and so people are deciding they don't want to support Barclays. They want to move to another type of bank that's moving in the right direction. So as consumers, we need to make choices. As governments need to make financial incentives for people to shift over, and then the businesses that don't make those shifts are naturally going to lose their market share, and eventually they're going to go bust. And you need to be very creative in what you are as a business. So if you're a car manufacturer and you think, I've just got to continue to produce more and more cars, is that actually your business model? Or are you a company that is delivering a transport solution to your customers rather than actually producing cars? So therefore, could you produce less cars? Because even putting more electric cars on the road is not the solution. Just changing from fossil fuel driven cars to electric cars and having more and more cars on the road isn't the solution. Having a better transport solution is the direction we should be going in. So therefore, there will be companies that are going to scale up and take that market. Now, if you're in the car industry and you're producing cars and you can see that there is going to be a decline, again, it's that sort of visualizing what the future is going to look like. And if the future is going to look like a future that has less cars on the road, but people still want to move around, then be a business that's going to deliver that solution. Think differently.
Yeah, the way I was thinking about it is like every business is going to have to become an environmental business in the future. I feel like we obviously have lived through this period where every business has, because of social media, has had to become a media company effectively. Like we sell cardboard boxes and we're doing a podcast on a Wednesday afternoon. We're not selling boxes. And I feel like it's similar, like what these businesses that are not investing in this don't realise is it's not about whether it's cheaper or more expensive. It's about the industry is going to change. And if you're a plastic moulder, you have to think, how do I become the environmental plastic moulder that helps people tackle this challenge, because it's obviously such a big challenge of our time.
Yeah,
that's what I think.
And how do you find new materials? So, can we use bioplastics? Let's support some innovation in bioplastics, which is happening. That's. But we still want to make products because people are still going to want sailing boats, sailing dinghies to go and sailing.
Yeah. So we have like a closing question that we like to ask, which is, Steff, where would you like the world to be in 10 years' time?
Where would I like the world to be in 10 years' time?
You might also want to say where you think it will be.
Well, I think that we've got two paths that we can go down. One is business as usual, and I think the business as usual path is going to end up in real disaster in many, many ways. I think that we're quite isolated in the UK from some of the real harsh impacts of climate change. But the trouble is that we're not actually isolated from it because the parts of the world that are already being affected far more quickly are going to displace people that are going to want to move over to places like this part of the hemisphere, which is slightly more protected. So we're going to have a massive displacement of people. In terms of feeding the global population is going to become more and more difficult because a lot of land is not going to be able to produce food. So if we carry on business as usual, it's not going to be a pleasant place to live. And it always surprises me how people sort of get this whole thing wrong about environmental impact and climate change and think, well, it's the earth that we're trying to protect. We're actually just trying to protect our ability to live on this planet, and this planet is here to support our life. Or that's one of the things. It's done in a wonderful way for millions and millions of years, and we're very quickly turning it into a planet that isn't going to be able to support our life, and therefore our lives are going to become more and more difficult in lots of ways. So that's business as usual. So therefore we've got to transition to a different type of future. And therefore I think it has to be far more focused on community and regeneration and, trying to connect back with nature in a far better way than perhaps we do at the moment. And I think once we start to do that, people will start to enjoy nature and enjoy life more and enjoy focusing on their own health and well-being more. Now, people have also got to live, and there needs to be an economy, but that economy can be around people's health and well-being. The economy is about moving money around, and you can, if you repurpose your economy to deliver a sustainable future, then you're just doing things differently. You've got a different purpose that sits around the economy, so my vision for 10 years' time is that we'll be breathing air that is going to smell better and taste better and start to be less polluted than it is at the moment, and we're going to see reductions in people's mental health because actually they're starting to reconnect with nature in a better way, and we've started to learn to build houses out of natural materials. So we're looking at a whole new economy around the way that we build and refurbish existing properties. I think we'll see a lot more people eating plant-based diets, and that will become almost the norm. And I think the meat industry will hopefully massively decrease in size, and people will still eat meat, but the meat will be more sustainably farmed, and So yeah, I think there's that transition needs to happen, but actually that transition happening takes us to a better future, takes us to something that delivers more happiness. I mean, what's the measurement of success?
Yeah.
Is it the amount of money that people have got in their pockets? To a certain extent, that is important. But if that money is just going to be used to consume more things that don't actually make people happy, then that isn't the measurement that we should be looking at. You should be looking at happiness as the measurement that you're trying to get to, and giving people more money to buy the wrong things and do the wrong things is not going to make them happier. So money might become less important.
I agree. To answer simply, I agree. We were talking before you came about the donut economics book. I don't know if you read that.
Yeah, obviously, Kate.
Obviously she talks about how, because we measure our economies like success by GDP, but should we be measuring it also by social and environmental metrics as well?
Definitely should.
Yeah. No, I dig that. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the podcast. We hope it was truly
worth your while.
For more information, visit reuserbox.co.uk/earthyourwhile.
And if you'd like to appear on the next series of Earth Your While, please email media@reuserbox.co.uk.